standing as a candidate for the Scottish Anti-Cuts Coalition. And we're a coalition made up of trade unionists, community campaigners and socialists. And I'm a public sector worker myself. I'm a steward in my union, which is Unison. And I'm standing as a candidate basically because I've got no voice in these elections. I don't hear any of the other parties represent me, or my family, or my neighbours, or my workmates, and so I decided to stand as a candidate myself, because I believe that none of the main parties are prepared to stand up and defend workers in their communities against the attacks on their jobs, our pay and our services. And we know that billions of pounds have been cut from public spending throughout Scotland over the last 3 years, and local councils are just passing on these cuts. Not one council in Scotland has refused to implement the cuts. In the last year alone, it's been reported that 13,000 public sector jobs have gone in Scotland, and obviously the services provided by those workers have suffered. But we're told we just have to put up with this because there's an economic crisis and cuts need to be made because there's no money, but that's just not true. There's plenty of money. There's money to bail out the bankers and pay them huge bonuses. There's money to give to the rich. They've just been handed a tax cut by Osborne. Big business and the wealthy, as we know, get away with not paying the taxes to the tune of £100 billion a year. So there's no shortage of money if you're rich, but workers are told that our pay is going to be frozen for years to come, and we see the services that we rely on being cut back, and we're told that we have to pay more for our pensions, that we have to work well into our old age before we get a pension, and if we live long enough to reach that age, then we'll get less. And I was out on strike as a public sector worker on the 30th of November, and I'll say I support 100% the strike action that PCS and some of the other unions are taking on the 10th of May. And I believe all public sector unions should still be involved in that fight, and I think they should be united, and there should be a wider unity with private sector workers whose pensions we know are also under attack. And I think that any councillor that's elected should be standing up for their communities, not voting through the cuts to jobs and services. And we need people who are prepared to fight to defend jobs and services, and I don't see anybody out there that's prepared to do that, which is why I'm standing as a candidate for Scottish Anti-Cuts Coalition, because we'll refuse to vote for cuts. We'll argue that budgets should be set based on need, and we would lead a fight to demand the money that's stolen from us as workers and as taxpayers to make the rich even richer. And we think that money should be invested in jobs and in housing, to provide quality public services, to look after our elderly and the vulnerable, and to give our young people a future. So we think that the mood exists among ordinary people against the cuts, and we saw that on November the 30th when thousands of public sector workers took strike action and marched in this city and across Scotland. And the response from the general public to the strike has made it clear that if such a mass campaign was organised, it would attract widespread support. And I'll just finish by saying that if you want councillors in your city chambers who will vote for cuts, who will vote to axe jobs and services, who will put up no opposition to the cuts being passed on from Westminster and Holyrood, then you can vote for any one of these people, because not one of them will stand up and refuse to make cuts. But if you want councillors who are going to fight, who will defend public services, who will oppose privatisation, who will oppose tax and jobs and pay, and who will refuse to make the budget cuts, then vote for Scottish Anti-Cuts Coalition candidate. And I would urge you to do that, because we know that these attacks are facing us for decades, and we need to start fighting back for the kind of society we want to live in. And that means electing people who are going to stand up and defend their communities.